Hello everybody, back here again with a Gold format deck profile. This time an Enraged Muka Muka deck with Last Will. Enraged Muka Muka is a level 5 Earth monster with 1200 attack and 600 defense, and it gains 400 attack and defense for each card in our hand. To summon Enraged Muka Muka, we have 3 copies of Giant Rat. We could run 3 copies of Enraged Muka Muka, but we only have 2 because it can get really cloggy, and we don't have too many ways to summon it from the hand. Then to help us keep advantage, we have 2 copies of Magician of Faith, either to bring back our Pot of Greed to help us plus and keep cards in our hand, or to simply keep up tempo or find ways to bring Muka Muka out. Then you have Morphing Jar to make sure we restock to 5 cards in our hand for Muka Muka. And Cyber Jar, which can not only trigger our Last Will effect if we use it on our turn, but also lets us add a boatload of cards to our hand to increase its attack, even though it can't actually summon Muka Muka itself. Then we also have 1 copy of Sinister Serpent, again to keep hand advantage, either with Morphing Jar when our opponent ends up duoing us. Then of course we have 1 Sangan to search pretty much every monster in this deck except for 1. And 1 copy of Exiled Force because we have the Giant Rats to summon it with. Then we have 1 copy of Gyaku Girei Panda, which is a level 3 Earth, 800 attack, 1600 defense, gains 500 attack for each monster on the opponent's side of the field, and does piercing damage. It's pretty good to summon off a Cyber Jar, and also it's pretty good against goats. Then we have 1 copy of Injection Fairy Lily, level 3 Earth with 400 attack, 200 defense. When it attacks or is attacked, it can pay 2,000 life points to increase its attack by 3,000. So it can run over a boatload of stuff or just attack directly for a ton of damage, which is pretty good because you can summon it off of Giant Rat or off of Last Will. Then we have 1 copy of Hyper Hammerhead, a level 4 Earth with 1500 attack, 1200 defense. So it's good against Tsukiyomi. And its effect is at the end of the damage step, if an opponent's monster that battled this card is not destroyed, turn that opponent's monster to the hand. A lot of people don't realize with this card that the effect still goes off even if it gets destroyed by battle. So even if they run over it with a BLS, for example, the BLS will get added back to their hand. Then you have 1 copy of DD Warrior Lady, because we have Sangan and Last Will to search it up. 1 copy of Breaker the Magical Warrior, just to help us with card advantage. And we hate back row in this deck. Then we have 1 copy of Visor Shock, which is a dark level 5 fiend with 800 attack and 600 defense. And when it is summoned, return all set cards in the field to the hand. This not only helps us bring back our cards that we had already set to our hand, so that we have the hand advantage and the extra attack for Muka Muka, but also it'll cause the opponent to return all their set monsters and help us to set up for an OTK or at least a huge hit. And you could summon it off of Last Will, or you could Tribute Summon to trigger Last Will. Tribute Summon Visor Shock as it's level 5. Then of course you have Graceful Charity and Pot of Greed. We don't run duo in this deck because we want to keep card advantage for us as much as possible. We don't care as much about the opponent's cards. Then of course we have 3 copies of Last Will. This card is extremely misunderstood in Go format, and its effect pretty much lets you summon any time you want at all, including during your end phase. So it's pretty powerful. You can pretty much save its effect for any timing you want except the damage step. Then we have 3 copies of Book of Moon because we really hate Thousand Eyes Restrict and the opponent's monsters. Plus we get to reuse our Magician of Faiths and Morphing Jars and Cyber Jar. 1 copy of Enemy Controller because if you you can get a combo with this deck where you end up tributing your monster after attacking with it, triggering Last Will, stealing the opponent's monster, then special summoning a monster like Enraged Muka Muka or Injection Fairy Lily from your deck and doing a boatload of damage all in one go. Then you have one copy of Giant Tornado because this deck can essentially OTK, plus again helps us add back our set cards to our hand so that we have the number of cards in our hand necessary for Enraged Muka Muka. Then of course you have Heavy Storm and Mystical Space Typhoon, and 2 copies of Nullman and Crossout, because we don't like the opponent having their flip effects go off. 1 copy of Premature Burial to help us get back all of our monsters, but especially, of course, Enraged Muka Muka, or even a Visor Shock. Then a Snatch Steal, either steal their monsters to tribute them for our tribute monsters, or, of course, just beat them over. We have Call the Haunted, for much the same reason as Premature Burial. Mirror Force, Ring of Destruction, to Sakuretsu Armor because we want to stop the opponent from hitting our Giant Rat at the correct time. And 1 Torrential Tribute. Some other cards that you could consider for the deck or to side is a Cypher Soldier, either as a one of or a couple of them in the side deck when you're facing a warrior matchup. Could also include Don Zalug to help you discard cards from your opponent's hand. As well, you could include a copy of Protector of the Sanctuary against a deck or side deck it for when you're up against something like a library FTK. You could also run creature swaps or Lightning Vortex, and could also use Compulsory Evacuation Device to help protect your cards for your combos, also to get rid of Thousand Eyes Restrict. And you could even run Spell Shield Type 8 to help protect your face down, your flip monsters when they get targeted by knock. Alright, that will do it for the deck profile. Hopefully you guys like the idea. I've played this deck quite a number of times, and it's always fun even if it doesn't win every game. And hope you guys have a great one.